Okay, hi everybody. Welcome. Thank you for coming today. Good to see you all. We have a great lineup today. I hope a whole bunch more people come. We'll see what happens. If not, you're the beneficiaries of some great talent tonight. Not only storytelling, but poetry as well. So a couple of housekeeping things. There's the bathroom. It's out the door here and to the left through the other door. If you do go down that hallway, please don't lock the door right here, because if you do, nobody will be able to get in. So, and that'll be a problem. We hope you enjoy today. If you do, and you feel like you want to donate, we have a little donation basket over there. We also have membership forms here. It's only $15 a year. It's worth it.
Right now.
Right now it's $15 a year. So basically you'll get a president's message every quarter or so. You get to come to these monthly meetings, and we kind of try to keep you updated on storytelling activities around here. So our first storyteller today is Sir Lawrence Crayson. Now, Sir Lawrence has been a member of the Sacramento Story Guild since 1994. 2 months after he started, he became a board member, and I believe he was president of the organization for about 8 years. After that, then he worked his way. Okay. So he's told stories up and down the coast, all the way up into Canada. And he often tells in schools, and he's told some stories in Native American schools and for disadvantaged students in general. Sir Lawrence is blind. And so that's why it's hard for him to get here. And he likes to tell his story over the phone. So for now, he's going to start his story, and we'll be able to hear him on the speakers, but we won't be seeing him on the TV screen. So Sir Lawrence, take it away.
Thank you, Andy. A long time ago, I didn't want to take you back to 1960, when in Sacramento, there was a wonderful event that happened every August. When I was a small boy at that time, I looked forward to it all year. In the summertime, in August, on Stockton Boulevard, just north of Broadway, there was a wonderful, wonderful place that you could enjoy entertainment, education, and absolute joy. It was because it was the California State Fair in that time. It was the entry fee was only 50 cents for all day. Also, the minimum wage was only $1 an hour. But I want to tell you, when I went into the fairgrounds, it was the beautiful, beautiful area where luscious green grass and trees all around, not like how Expo is today. But the highlight was the county's building. It was straight ahead and beautiful flowers going up to the entrance. And on either side of the door was the beautiful statues of the golden bears. Yeah. But when you went into this great hall, there are 56 counties that were represented, and each one of them had a stall or a booth where they could display wonderful items that they sold or grew. And someone was there from the fair who could tell you all about that particular county. These are counties that I had never heard of before. Since there were 56 counties, I learned about Siskiyou County, Lassen County, Inyo County, all these different counties, and they had wonderful scenery, wonderful displays of their areas, pictures and brochures, and you could ask questions about and anytime you want. But it was cool in there too, because it was 100 degrees outside in August, and it was cool inside, because most people did not have air conditioning. It was more like a swamp cooler. But on the outside, there was nice trees, green grass, where there was bandstands where local bands could play. Off in one area, there was the barn where you could look at real honest goodness, live cows, pigs, and all these stories on how to milk a cow and what they did with the cow when they did that. There was also wonderful smells of popcorn, cotton candy, hot dog on a stick, and one of my favorites was a nice whole glass of buttermilk. Oh, it tasted so good. Now, some people brought their picnic lunch, and there was a picnic ground area where you could put your lunch there, go off and see a display or something, come back and the lunch would be still there. There was no possibility of someone stealing it from you, but there was a midway and a horse track, and the horse track had a nice lake in the middle, and I could still hear the horse beat and the running of the horses, and you could sit and watch the horses for free. In the evening, there was fireworks, and everybody enjoyed it. There was also wonderful times that you could see the flower building, where at the entrance, there was a 2-story waterfall that was 8 feet wide. And it was so refreshing and wonderful to feel the cool water coming down. And it helped make the flower building very nice for tropical plants and bonsai and different flowers that needed the moisture. I had my very first soft ice cream from Foster's Freeze, and it was wonderful to have snow cones with many different flavors. Also, I remember getting hot dogs and tacos and anything there. The midway was wonderful too, with the carnies yelling out, throw this ball to hit this bottle, or hit this or hit that. It was wonderful excitement. It was a wonderful full day experience for 50 cents. But I still remember the wonderful time that I had the adventure of learning and absorbing all the sights and sounds that a young boy learned about California. And that was my summer adventure for many years in a row. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It certainly brought back memories for me of my first fair as well. For you guys too?
I used to go to that fair.
Really? You used to go to the one in Stockton?
Yeah.
Oh.
And there was
No, Stockton Boulevard.
Oh, Stockton Boulevard. Oh, yeah, yeah, okay.
There
Oh.
was a place that made orange something right
Marlitos,
across.
Marlitos.
Right.
No, he didn't talk
Ah.
about Marlitos. That was the only thing that.
It was a big deal. We always got it on the way home.
There were Martinos. Larry, you get this?
That's where I learned to gamble on the horses.
Ah, very good. Okay, if you can go ahead and spotlight Nancy. Just add her as a spotlight. Joyce is learning how to do the technical support here, so bear with us as we go on. Add spotlight, perfect. Okay, Nancy's with us now. Nancy Levinson. Nancy is originally from Chicago and grew up enjoying dance, music, theater, and art. Nancy became aware of the impact storytelling can have as she learned about her Jewish culture, where storytelling is not only used for entertainment, but also as a teaching tool in Judaism. Nancy has worked in early childhood education and in the mental health field, where she regularly used storytelling. So it was no surprise that 2 years ago, when she started on her journey to become a storyteller, she took to it quite naturally. Nancy tells true personal stories, most of which are funny, and one of her all-time favorite things to do is to make her mother laugh, which she hopes to do today as her mother watches from Chicago. She has a fun story to tell today about exposure to an interesting beach. Nancy, please take over.
Thank you so much. So years ago, many years ago, my family went to Hawaii. My brother got one of his degrees there, and we went for the graduation. And my mother called me. I was living in San Antonio at the time, and my mother called me and said, "We'll go early and we'll play, and we'll have we'll do fun things." And so we went and we decided to go to Kauai. And my brother rented a cottage for us near the beach. One of the days, though, I guess he had something else to do. And so he said, hey, Nance, why don't you and Mom go to the beach? And so I'm like, okay. And so we went to the beach. He gave us directions. This is way before GPS. And, we got lost. We always get lost. We knew that was going to happen. So, I mean, it was a regular occurrence for us to get lost and ask for directions. No big deal. So we got lost. We asked for directions. It took a long time, but we got to the beach. And we see the little arrow and we start to hike down. And it became very clear to me very quickly that there was nobody hiking up or down. And it seemed steep. And I stopped a couple times and said, Mom, is this right? This feels like it's not right. But we had no choice. So we continued. We hiked down for what seemed like a half an hour. It might not have been. And we get there and we're so relieved that we got there. And we start looking around. We're going to figure out where we're going to set ourselves up. Big smiles, beautiful, beautiful. The ocean, everything is beautiful. And we're looking. And all of a sudden, off in the distance, our smile goes from, and I see a group of people, and we're both going, and it becomes very clear to me that something's missing here.
Yes.
I see their skin color. Where's the color from the bathing suits? There isn't any. They're not wearing anything. And I'm like, oh my God, I think I'm at a nude beach. Oh my God. I'm at a nude beach with my mother. And my mother, she was standing to my left. She says, Nance, I think this is a nude beach. And I said, I know. And she says, do you want to stay? And I said, I mean, we just hiked down all this way. I mean, don't you want to go in the water? And so we're like looking around and we're uncomfortable, but, and they were off in the distance. I see this tall guy, older, white hair, little bald, beard, a little pot belly, big smile on his face. He's throwing a ball to a naked woman. I'm like, oh, you look very happy, sir. I bet you are very happy. And so I'm looking around. I'm like, okay. The naked people there to the right will go to the left. I see a big rock formation, like huge. And I figure, here, we'll go around the rock formation and that'll be it. They're over there. This will be over here, right? No more naked people, right? So we start walking. And we get closer to the rock formation and then we come right around it and we see a man and a woman and they're naked and they're talking and he's got his leg propped up on the rock and we're not nudists, we don't know how we're supposed to conduct ourselves. And so my mom and I are like, hi, how are you? we don't know what to do. Hi. And, like I said, I mean, when I first got down there, they were off in the distance. I couldn't see anything specific. I'm just like, no color. But when we got to the rock, I mean, I could reach out and touch this dude, like he was right there. And there he is with the leg propped up in all of his glory with the woman. And so we kept on walking and we found a spot and we went in the water. We were hysterical laughing the whole time because this was completely unexpected. But the naked people kept coming and we weren't going to get naked. So we just, we're like, okay, let's go. So it wasn't, we didn't spend a whole lot of time there. So if you remember in the beginning of the story, we had to hike down. We go back up. It was very steep. I have vivid memories of me pushing my mother by her tush up this, like hiking up this little trail thing. She's grabbing for, the branches of the bush. I mean, it was awful. And there was nobody to ask. There was nobody coming or going. I couldn't say, can you get us some help here? There was nobody to ask. So we'd go a few steps, I'd push, we'd stop. We'd go a few steps, but I mean, we just, had to push our way through. We get to the car, we drive back, we probably got lost, again. So it was a long day. And we got back to the cottage that my brother, rented. And I walked in and I said, David, you sent us to a nude beach. And he said, oh, no, not that one, not that one. Why did you go to that one? No, not that one. And he said, why? I said, we got lost. We asked for directions. This is where they sent us. Oh, no. He's trying to figure out where we went wrong. And we're like, it's already happened. It's too late. I later found out that in Kauai, there are doubles of things. There are two streets with the same name that are not connected in two separate, they have doubles. There's two beaches with the same name, the regular one and the nude one. And so I am sure that when we got out and asked for directions, the person that gave us directions knew that they were going to give directions to these unsuspecting tourists to the nude beach. I'm sure they knew what they were doing. And that is the story of me going to a nude beach with my mother.
Excellent story, Nancy. And you can hear the audience, I think it's a big hit.
Good
Great.
job, Linda.
Great job of the descriptions of how you were feeling, how your mom felt. Oh, I've been so uncomfortable as well. Okay, thanks, Nancy. We're gonna move on to the next person. So Joyce, if you can remove the spotlight on Nancy, and then we'll go ahead and add the spotlight for Linda Kennedy. You how to do that?
Well, I've got Linda, but I haven't gotten rid of Nancy yet.
Hi, Nancy.
I can't.
So here, let me. Yep. Let's move this out of the way. Okay, so go to here, go to the three dots. Okay, and do spotlight.
Okay.
Okay, and you've already added her. Okay, and so hang on, and then you'll remove me again.
Okay.
As soon as we get done. Go. Thanks for being patient with us, everybody. Especially the Zoomers, because we're all about training here and getting things done. And by the way, that was Nancy's first time telling it this group. So I think she really did a wonderful job.
Can't wait more.
Okay, so Linda Kennedy started telling stories over 30 years ago. I've seen her do many of them, and I'm always impressed with whatever story she decides to tell. Sometimes she does personal stories, sometimes she does folk stories, sometimes she does fairy tales. Whatever it is, it's always a good story to hear. Her repertoire includes most genres, and she's partial to multicultural folk tales. She especially likes telling stories that weave peace, justice, compassion, wisdom, and humor. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and welcome Linda Kennedy.
Well, thank you very much. I just got home from a delightful vacation with my son, Patrick, who just celebrated his 55th birthday about 3 days ago, and his wife, Susan. We went to Italy, we went to Rome, Florence, and Pisa, and then we went to London. It was a wonderful, wonderful vacation. But that is not the story I am going to tell you today, but it's about Patrick and a little bit about Susan. This is a different format for me today because the whole story is going to take place on a telephone conversation, which I've never done before. And I've decided I will not hold my hand up through the whole story because I find that distracting. So I won't do that. I might do it once in a while. So about 15 years ago, my daughter-in-law, Susan, called me and I said, "Oh, are you guys back from your trip to Spain?" And she goes, "Yes." And I said, "I'm anxious to hear all about it and see the pictures." She goes, "Yeah, but I have a question to ask you." And I said, "Well, what is it?" And she said, "Well, we were in Seville and we'd been many places in Spain. And Patrick said to me, this could very well be the next chapter in my story, The Shoes." And I said, "Patrick, what are you talking about?" And then Patrick told Susan there that she was to ask his mom. So that's why she had called me on the phone. And she said, "Do you know what he's talking about?" And I said, "Yes, I think I do." In 1976, we had planned a bicentennial vacation. We had a 1968 green Dodge van conversion that we painted blue and white and put red hubcaps on it. We packed ourselves up with not too much clothes. We thought we could use laundromats from one KOA to another across country. And we were going to go all around the perimeter of the United States, looking at monuments and national parks for the bicentennial year. Now, each child, we had the two children, Jancy was 12, Patrick was almost 8 years old. And each one had a brown bag. This is way before we had tote bags, mind you. They had a brown grocery bag with their name on it, and it had their activities in it, things they could play with. And they each had, of course, the clothing, and they each had 2 pairs of shoes, red kids and blue kids. And that's the shoes they wore for the whole trip. Now, our trip began, I would say, eastward ho. We first went to Yellowstone, and then we followed the path we had created, thanks to AAA triptychs, you remember those. And we went to Yellowstone, up to Custer's Battlefield. We marveled at the big barns and silos as we crossed Nebraska. We went to Mount Rushmore. We found our way across, I think it's Minnesota first. In Wisconsin, we visited a dairy that the cows were on like a carousel as they were being milked. That was something we had never seen before. We then went up to Rochester and we visited Niagara Falls. After that, we went across to Vermont, New Hampshire. We studied some early American sites, and we even went to Grandma Moses' house. From there, we traveled on down and we took the kids to the Statue of Liberty. We climbed the Statue of Liberty. Then we went down into Pennsylvania. We went to Philadelphia. We left our fingerprints on the Liberty Bell. We camped at the Gettysburg Battleground Campground. We went to an Amish farm. We had an Amish dinner. Do you know if you can grow it, they can cream it? We had, I don't know, like a dozen different cream vegetables. That's what I remember for sure about that. Leaving Pennsylvania, we went to Washington, D.C. There we did what most tourists did. We went to the Smithsonian's. I was looking for the Hope Diamond. We saw the Spirit of St. Louis. I was quite emotionally moved when I saw the flag that was hanging on the back wall there that Francis Scott Key had seen that inspired him to write the Star-Spangled Banner. We went to the Arlington Cemetery, saw JFK's grave, the changing of the guard. We found our way to the Capitol, and we were told that if you go downstairs in the basement, you might see some interesting things. So we went down there uninvited, and a guard stopped us. He said, why are you folks here? And we said, well, because we heard there's some good things to see down here. And he said, well, then come with me. He took us down the hallway, and there, past a door and a large wall of glass and another wall of like prison bars, was the catafalque that Abraham Lincoln had laid on his state, and since then the other passing presidents. We were glad we were brave enough to sneak downstairs. After visiting Washington, D.C., we also walked in the White House. You could tour it back in those days, and we climbed to the top, or the elevator, I don't remember, to the top of the Washington Monument, and of course, the Jefferson Memorial, the Abraham Lincoln Memorial. Then we went to Virginia, to Monticello. We visited Thomas Jefferson's home. After that, I was still telling Susan on the phone, we had just family time. We went along the coastline, did some swimming in the beaches. The kids swam in the Gulf of Mexico, found our way up into Mississippi, spent a few days at Tom's family farm where he was born and raised. And after a few days with family, it was westward ho. We went across the Painted Desert, Carlsbad Caverns, Grand Canyon, finally to California. And 5 weeks later total, we were home by the 4th of July. And Susan said, yes, but what does that have to do with his story of the shoes? And I said, oh, okay. Well, being the 4th of July, they still had about 7 weeks of summer, and Patrick wore his little red and blue Keds until they were totally destroyed. And the day came that I had to take him shoe shopping for back to school shoes. Back in those days, he wore Buster Brown leather Oxfords. So we went to the all-American shoe store called Kenny's, and we sat down, and remember where the clerks would come and they would measure your foot and bring you shoes? Well, the clerk took these little ragged, dirty, holy red sneakers off of Patrick, his little kids, off of Patrick's feet, and he held them up and he put them down on a nearby chair. And then he fitted Patrick to his Oxfords. After we decided on the shoes, the clerk then picked up the shoes like he was holding something from a garbage can. He says, can I throw these away for you? And I said, you'll have to ask Patrick. Those are his favorite shoes. Patrick said, throw them away? No, they climbed the Statue of Liberty. They went to Niagara Falls. They were in the White House. And he went on and on and on. Susan, just all the things I just told you about the trip. And by the time he was finished, the clerk was holding those shoes like they were the Hope Diamond. And he put them gently into the shoebox, put the tissue over them, put the lid on it, and handed them to Patrick, which he took home and kept in his closet for many years. So Susan, I was telling Susan, I don't know all the places you and Patrick went to this last couple of weeks in Spain, but it must have been awesome if he thinks that that would be the next chapter to his story of the shoes. Hang on.
What an outstanding story, and you never disappoint. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everybody loved it.
Oh, and one more thing. Within that trip of 5 weeks, there are several other little nuggets of stories that need to be told, but they couldn't fit them into this theme. So maybe another time.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear those. Okay, well, thank you, Zoomers, for coming on. We're going to go to the in-person portion of our program now. Our next person is a poet. It would be Patrick Griselle. Patrick is a poet, songwriter, journalist, and visual artist. He has books which include Dark Music, Chicken Months, about which Robert Bly wrote, the poems have a sweet spontaneity and tenderness. It makes me want to read it. I'm glad you included that quote there. Minotaur Into Night with Sumi paintings by Jimmy Suzuki. 13 poems. It's like that. And the vignettes, a work in progress. This guy's busy. He's very, very busy. We both decided that he's famous today. Probably ought to get his autograph before he leaves today. He's a founding member and a previous president, as well as an editor for the Sacramento Poetry Center. And he is currently treasurer, acting secretary, and continuing advisor for the SBC Board of Directors, for which we should thank him because we are using their facility at no charge, and we really do appreciate it. He founded or co-founded, he founded or co-founded at one point or another, edited most of the SBC publications, and was editor-in-chief of On the Wing, an arts magazine, and has written reviews and articles for many other publications. And you have a new book out right now called More Than Enough. The Poetry Center does, sorry, yes. And it's on the shelf there. If you're buying, are we selling it or? It is for sale. It's cheap. It's good. I'm in it. Vicky's in it. A few of us are in it. Patrick's in it. It's a good book. His band, Proxy Moon, released its premiere CD in 2016, a second is in the works. And John Lee Hooker, I think most of you probably know who he is, once said he sound pretty good on the dobro. We are very lucky to have him here with us today. Patrick, please join us.
Well, this is different.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever done this with this group.
Oh, you know you haven't.
I have.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're so glad you're here.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay, so I could tell the story of possibly getting someone murdered in New Jersey by a mobster, but it's true, but I can't do it because statute of limitations being what they are, probably don't want to mention it, but this is true. I'll give you a quick version of that story. So there was a guy, I have to go over here.
There, in front of the camera.
Oh.
Yeah, that's in the way.
There was a guy, how about this?
Yeah.
There was a guy who was part of a ring that was going around stealing credit cards and buying all sorts of stuff. And he made the mistake of stealing a credit card. So what they would do is they'd find, like, they go, Vicky has great credit. And they somehow get into the system, order a credit card in their name, you know, on her account, and then they use it until Vicky figured out that somebody's running up her bill. Well, they made the mistake of doing it to this mobster, who was a customer at the business that I worked at, and was none too happy that this guy had used his card here. And I helped him kind of do a little research on it, and then realized that I told him who the guy was and where to find it. And his parting words to me, pardon my language, the whole conversation with this guy is very foul-mouthed and vulgar. And I said, he's been really lucky. And the guy says to me, well, his luck's about to fucking run out. But I gotta go. But the kicker was that, you know, as I'm talking to this guy, I've got this assistant who's Italian, whose father was in the trades. And so he knows a lot of these guys. And there's an area of North New Jersey and New York where, you know, if you're any kind of business, you deal with these guys on some level or another. And he said, who is this guy? And I said, his name is, I won't say his name. And he said, well, what did he tell you he does? I said, I don't know what he does. And he says, oh, he said he's a garbage man. And why would he need a piano and a boat rental and all this stuff? Because he's a garbage man. And my buddy says, what does Tony Soprano do? He's a garbage man, right? And so, and then he says to me, it's like I'm telling the story without telling the whole story. But so he says, watch this. He wants to call his dad to like verify. I'm going, there's no way, right? That this is, but he says, so what is, you know, let me call my dad. He couldn't get his dad, but his mom answered the phone. And he says, Mom, I'm over here with Pat. What can you tell him? And the guy's name, I won't say. He said, what can you tell him about so-and-so? And his mother's single word answer, well, kind of a single word answer was, forget about it. I'm thinking, God, I'm dead. And then I'm leaving that night. I never noticed it before, but it was a business that had a lot of cardboard coming in and out, and for packaging. And as I'm leaving that night, there's this dumpster that's as big as half of this room. And on the side of it, it says, this guy's name, North New Jersey Waste Management. And I went, it's like that poor guy, whoever he was, who made the mistake of stealing from this guy, might end up in that. Anyway, that was, yeah, it was fun. Okay, so I should just leave now while I'm ahead, right? Okay, here's just this story. And I just kind of had this poem that kind of fit with the summer adventure, even though it's not really a story in that regard. But it fits, I think. It's called Summer of the Spiders. The carport of my childhood home had a dirt floor and was clad in sheet metal. It was a rattling drum when the storms came in warm off the Gulf of Mexico, as they frequently did in the summer. And despite my mother's admonition to not go out there when there was lightning, because it would probably get struck, though it never did, I would sneak out, leap off the back porch and hang out with the storm and the drum. In the far right corner was a pile of big rocks covered in a tangle of webs where lurked a big brown spider. I don't know what kind it was, but it was big. I caught it in a jar a few times, kept it a day or two and fed it bugs and then released it back to its dusty rock pile. I don't know really how long it was there or how often I did this, or even if it was the same spider every time. On the Monday after The Wizard of Oz was shown on TV, my cousin Scotty and our buddy Cookie would do our best imitation of the Lollipop Guild song, twisting our faces to sing out of the side of our mouths, flipping our arms front to back and pulling up our pants and shuffling down the middle of the street in front of our school. We would march back and forth past a spooky, crumbling Victorian-style house where an ancient woman lived. The porch railings and posts were covered in vines. The house always seemed dark and forbidding. Sometimes the woman would be sitting on her porch, mostly hidden back there by the vines, ghostly almost in her shawl and what I think I remember as blue hair. I never knew if she was entertained by our silliness. She never said a word, just watched, and we kept our distance. I can't remember if I ever knew her name. She didn't go to our church. None of the kids I knew claimed her as grandmother. Some called her the witch lady. I think maybe I called her the witch lady too. One late spring day on our way to school, the three of us walked by the house and noticed stretched between the vine-covered columns a big spider web, and in the middle of it, a giant of a spider. We conspired and found sticks, and with a lot of noise and excitement, pounded the spider down and destroyed the web, thinking we had done something heroic. We had saved the witch lady. The old woman flung her screen door open and began to scream at us, "You boys get out of here. Go on, get. Why'd you kill that spider? Get on away from here. Go on now." I don't remember if those were actual words or what else she may have said, if she threatened to tell our mothers or report us to the parish priest, but she was crying, and that mortified us. We never spoke of it and avoided passing the house even on the day after The Wizard of Oz. We never heard from the priest or our mothers, but we kept it clenched in our jaws for a long time. This summer, spiders returned. Spider mites, actually, which aren't really spiders, but close enough, built a blanket of webs over the tomato patch, a juggernaut of tiny orange mites crawling through. In a week, they laid waste to a banner year of heirlooms and beefsteaks. No amount of oil, soap, or insecticides or my buddy's organic pot concoction could stop them. They won, so be it. And then there were the gardening shoes outside the door that I slipped my feet into after pruning roses in flip-flops and realizing that was kind of a stupid idea. After a few minutes of raking up the clippings, I felt a sting on my toe and assumed a thorn had gotten me anyway, but the sting continued to burn, and when I pulled my shoe off to check, a crumpled black widow fell out. In the emergency room, it was a hit. Even the woman in the chair next to me, who was hemorrhaging from a surgery, craned over to see. One nurse feigned disgust and fled when he saw the spider wrapped in a tissue. It was everything I was warned it would be. A few days of excruciating, radiating pain and cramps and spasms. The only upside was a few nights of wild, fleetingly vivid fever dreams. All that remains of any of this, as it turns out, is that old woman, her broken heart. And one day, long ago, and the terrified faces of boys who escaped penance, who escaped entanglement, if only for a while. When I see a beautiful garden spider dangling in the center of a web now, I nod in acknowledgement to it and to her. When I see a black widow in the wood pile or under a lawn chair, I bow in respect and keep my distance. So be it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. That was excellent. I mean, I could see it, feel it, hear it. I could put myself right there
Yeah.
the whole time. That was very well done. Thank you so much. All right, our next person is a storyteller. Michelle Woods. She is a writer of fiction and creative nonfiction. Her work has been featured in the Blue Moon Literary and Art Review, Stories on the Stage. Y'all know that, right? And the Celebration Arts Storytelling Festival. That would be fun to know a little bit more about that. A graduate of the California State University, Sacramento. Me too. But not in the creative writing program. The Stingers Up, right? I found out how they got that Stingers Up thing, by the way. I'll tell you afterwards.
Tell us now.
Tell you now? Well, it was at the beginning of the time when they just built the university. There was a big mud field and a truck got stuck in it. And so everybody from the university went and had to heave the truck. And when they did, it bumped into a great big tree that had a big beehive in it. And so all these bees swarmed them all over the place. And from that point, and quite a number of them got stung apparently. And from that point forward, it was Stingers Up for the University of California in Sacramento. Yeah, the guy that just retired told that story. It was a story he told at a high school event I was at. It was really great. I could still remember it. Anyway, she went into the University of Sacramento creative writing program, and she often draws upon her free-range childhood and random encounter with strangers for inspiration. So please, Michelle, come and tell us a story.
I think I came the wrong way. So you're very kind. I'm more of a writer than a storyteller, but I will do my best today to be a storyteller for you. So this is a summer adventure story. And this happened when I was 14, the summer in between junior high school and high school. So I got a job on a farm this summer, and I'm not a country girl. I grew up in Fairfield, California, and I lived in with my mom in a 2-bedroom apartment that had this spectacular view of Interstate 80. But one day when I was in math class, I overheard some kids saying that, hey, Cal Yee's farm is hiring. And apparently that particular summer, Cal Yee's was so desperate, they were willing to hire teenagers. So the next day, I rode my bike over the kind of overpass that goes over the freeway to the other side of the freeway, all the way to the edge of town, and then down this 2-lane country road. And I found Cal Yee's farm. I hop off my bicycle and I'm walking across the gravel driveway that goes to the farm, and I see an office building. And I knew it was an office building and not a barn or something else because it had a sign on the front that said office. So I go into the office and there's a lady sitting there, and she is sitting behind a counter and she's surrounded by paperwork. And that lady was Mrs. Yee. So Mrs. Yee gave me an application to fill out, and she checked my social security card, and she said, okay, come back next Monday. So the following Monday, my mom on her way to work drives me to Cal Yee's farm, and I go back to the office. And this time, Mrs. Yee gives me something she called a ticket. And what it looked like, it was this long piece of cardboard. And on the cardboard were printed these rows and rows of tiny little blue circles. And she told me that I needed to clip this ticket to the pocket of my jeans. And then she said, go to the cutting shed. And I said, where's the cutting shed? And she points out the window, and there's this building. And she says, there's the cutting shed. And it was this sort of open building, open on 3 sides, and it looked like a giant gazebo. So I go to the cutting shed, and that's where I learned how to cut apricots. Now, I know there might be some of you who have never cut apricots before. So the way it works is basically if you're a cutter, you there's a table, and on the table, each of us had our own table, and on the table there's a wooden tray, and there's some guys that work in the orchard, and they're constantly bringing in crates of fresh fruit, and they'll set them next to the tables. You pick up an apricot, they give you a knife, you cut the apricot in half and flick out the seed, and then you place it skin side down on the tray. And you do that until the tray is completely full. And then you raise your hand and you say, tray. And then the guys from the orchard come back in, they take the tray away, and they give you another tray. And you start the process all over again. So it's a fairly easy job, kind of right next door to boring, almost a little monotonous. So to amuse ourselves, you know, we would kind of gossip about who was going out with who. And this was in the days before Spotify. So there was a radio that was kind of attached to the ceiling in the cutting shed. And it was just blaring music constantly. And the music stations would rotate so that everybody could hear the type of music that they liked. You know, sometimes it was on, you know, like a pop or a soul station, and there's, you know, Michael Jackson and Earth, Wind and Fire. And then sometimes it was on a rock station, you know, the Stones and Van Halen. And sometimes it was on a Latin station, and they'd play marimba and ranchero music and salsa, because there was this whole group of Latina ladies that worked for the Cal-Yee farms, and they were kind of permanent. They weren't like us kids who were just, you know, there for a month or so. They were kind of permanent employees. So there was this one Latina lady, her name was Linda, and she really liked salsa music, and she liked to dance. And so whenever a salsa song came on, sometimes when she's working at her little table with the fruit tray, she would kind of do a little cha-cha, you know, like that. And so, you know, that was about it. There wasn't a lot going on. Sometimes Mr. Yee, who was Mrs. Yee's husband, would drive by on his forklift. And probably the most interesting person was Grandpa Lee. And Grandpa Lee was Mr. Yee's father. And he was supposed to be retired. He lived in this little white house that was on the edge of the farm, an entrance to the farm. And there was a porch, and there was a rocking chair, and he was supposed to be sitting in it, but he never did. He would get up every morning and put on this short sleeve plaid starch shirt and these khaki pants with these razor sharp creases in them. And he would walk from his house to the cutting shed to check things out, make sure that everything was copacetic. And he had some mobility issues. He didn't walk really well. So he would actually kind of shuffle over the gravel. And you knew that he was coming because you'd look out, you'd see this swirl of dust around his ankles. And okay, so he was on his way. So when he got to the cutting shed, you know, he would kind of do his quality control thing. And if he thought you were doing a good job, he would say, good job, and he'd smile at you. And if he thought you were doing a bad job, he would, you know, critique and tell you how to do it right. So one day he comes into the shed, and first person he goes up to is Linda, the Latino lady that likes to cha-cha. And he said, excellent job, well done. And then I'm thinking, he's going to come to me next, because he was kind of close to me. So I get real nervous, and I start, you know, laying my apricots down on the tray in very even symmetrical rows, so everything looks really pretty. But he pays no attention to me. He walks right past me and goes to this other kid who's a little ways away. And I can't really hear everything that he's saying, but I knew that he was upset because he looked kind of mad. And the kid, the whole time Grandpa Yee's talking to the kid just ignores him. He's just cutting apricots like he's not even there. So Grandpa Yee is getting more and more angry. And so finally I hear him shout, give me your ticket. And so this is not good news because this kind of means you're fired because the Yees used the tickets and the little holes that the orchard guys punched in the tickets to keep track of how many trays we cut and how much they owed us at the end of the week. And so Grandpa Yee is yelling, "Give me your ticket." And the kid is still ignoring him. So Grandpa Lee grabs the kid's ticket and rips it off, and he puts it in his back pocket, and he turns around and he's headed out the cutting shed going back home. And so the kid, as Grandpa Lee walks away, just very gently reaches for the ticket, pulls it out of the back pocket, and it was so smooth. It was like butter melting off a biscuit. It was just smooth. And so Grandpa Lee has no idea what happened. The kid goes back to his table. He's cutting fruit, and we're all wondering, is anyone going to do anything? And so at that moment, Mr. Yee drives by on his forklift, and he saw what happened. And so we're looking at Mr. Yee wondering, is he going to do anything? And so Mr. Yee is kind of a philosophical guy, and his eyes looked a little funny. They look kind of hard and kind of soft and kind of dreamy and kind of alert. And I could tell he was just really thinking very deeply. And so he did nothing. He just drove off. And I always thought that Mr. Yee said, Grandpa is okay. Grandpa feels justified. He feels swagified. He put that kid in his place. He has no idea that the kid took the ticket from his pocket. Grandpa's okay. He had a lot of fruit to process that summer. He couldn't afford to lose a worker. And the kid wasn't the best cutter, but he wasn't the worst either. And so there's really no reason to fire him. So we all go back to cutting, and some salsa music comes on the radio, and the kid starts bobbing his head. The kid that took the ticket starts bobbing his head in time to the salsa music. And then Linda, the lady that likes to dance, she starts doing a little cha-cha. And then I say tray, because my tray is full and I need to have it changed out. And so while I'm waiting for the guys from the orchard to come back into the shed to take my tray away and punch my ticket, I start doing the cha-cha too. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Oh, would that all our bosses were so wise as Mr. Yee. Yeah, just let it go, And, nothing like cha-cha music to keep you going to work. Love that. Our next presenter is a poet, Karen Durham. I've known Karen for a few years now, mostly in writing classes and workshops and whatnot, but I've known she's also a poet and heard some of her really great poetry. She was born and raised in California. A rare person,
Yes.
as am I.
Me
Same
too.
thing. You too? Oh, wow. And few of us. When she's not writing, she loves to swim, hike, and run on the coast. Karen came to appreciate poetry late in life. In the late 20-teens, she attended fiction workshops at Tamales Bay, where she first heard Ada Limon read from her poetry book, Bright Dead Things. What a great title. Bright Dead Things. Wow. She also met poet Kate, is it Ashe at Tamales Bay, decided to study with her and was off and running. 2 of Karen's poems have been published in anthologies. She still doesn't understand half of what she writes, but hopes you'll like it anyway. Karen, please come on up.
Okay, hi, everybody.
Hi.
Thanks for having me and happy 2 days before Juneteenth. Yeah, it's a national holiday now. That's very cool. So my poems come from light places and dark places. instant images or stories, so they're pretty short, so I have a lot of them. So some are about love, some are about summer, one's about fashion or furniture fashion. A couple are a little sadder. I'll let you judge. Okay, I'll just start. Summer love. In May, a fresh breeze lifts our boats from golden sands away over sapphire waves. By September, we sail a storm-chopped sea whose shore smells of salt, no, reeks of rot, flesh of seal or maybe whale, to be taken in or up or out by 10,000 crabs so heedless in their greed that they next will be snatched by wheeling winged rats. None of us will be saved.
Holy mackerel.
Okay, sorry, I'm not, I don't project very well. I'll try to project. Joy drought. Yesterday's clouds soaked the sky, and last night they spit across the valley. This morning, a shift, and I can't tell the dew from rain when I bend to touch the grass. I lay down and feel cold, cold, slappy slaps of ocean waves. Just in time, this song's rhythm laps at my legs. I pull on my furry skin. My body flies into the sea.
I'll turn off the fan here, so it's not quite so noisy.
Fall fashion on the rocks. Best job I've had in a long time. Supine on the sofa in the Spartan studio. Press into it. A voice from behind a single lens. Desire it. Nearly a corpse, I pose. My arms stretch from a black tee. Legs curl in cashmere pants to crossed ankles. My head rests against a pillowback that mimics granite right down to an ancient thing's desires. The 50mm peers at us, the sofa and I. I sneak a peek to the side, not even a glance toward the sofa. Still, the jealous one clicks its tongue while the room gets hotter and hotter.
All right.
So once in State Line, Nevada, I saw a boy who was, he had a skateboard and it started to just pour. I think my husband was at a conference and I was just screwing around. But he was sheltering from a storm at a bus stop. And it just made me think of BART stations. And when you come in from the rain and it's really cold and concretey in there. And somehow I think I had just read a poem that I managed to combine the image of that poem or the kind of the rhythms of that poem with the images from this stormy season. So this is called At the BART Station after William Carlos Williams. He smokes a strike at the kiosk, an empty box of them in his hand. He must be rich, a full box gone. I can see it, the way he inhales himself from the tip, sucks her through his fingers, his solace of last puffs to burst his heart. She sieves the storm past the turnstile, a spatter of it on her coat. She could be cold, all love lost. I can see it, the way she exhales herself, shivers back in, drops him at her feet. a last glance to soften her leaving. Blue-eyed boy. A man boy walks past on the trail one day, his eyes too bright. Under a bridge, I step over an azure sweater that might have been saved once. All winter, the sweater sinks into the sand. A rock marks the spot. One day, I forget to look for it, wrapped in river knit as it is. How could I forget? Thinking of my own troubles, as we do. Easter Monday, I wonder, I roll back the stone. He's gone. This one's called This is Summer. I'm on a coffee shop patio the other day, first bare legs of the year. The shades cool on my skin, the sun a caress. Between whispers of morning breeze, I get my first scent of hot wood. Papers ruffle on the table. My nape warms as when someone is watching you. Because someone is watching me. She's newly hatched, size of a pencil lid, color of a lime slushy. She perches on the back of my chair, wondering whether I'd make a good first meal. I bite into my scone. She turns her triangle face 180 degrees to follow my hand's movement. When a mantis is threatened, it stands on hind legs, spreads its front legs wide to intimidate. She doesn't bother. I'm no threat. I'm breakfast. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I was just ready. I was ready for the next one.
Yeah.
Keep going, keep going, keep going. Thanks so much, Karen. I really like that. It was great. Our next guest, John Patterson. John has had a 3-part career as he prefers life experiences. First 10 years, blue collar freight at SFO. This is great. I didn't know any of this about you at all. So it was really fun to read it. First 10 years as a blue collar freight at SFO, depots and docks, PG&E road crews, and industrial steel yards. Second, 2 decades in the law, running his own office in SAC for most of that time. And lastly, almost 2 decades in public high school education. Well, you had so much to draw on to teach the kids, so that was great. Today's story is called His First 4th of July. So welcome, John.
Thank you to the Sacramento Storytellers Guild and the Sacramento Poetry Center. I think I'm going to get all jumbled up here, but I tried to set some of this up before I got here. This story was related to me by this 7-year-old kid named John Patterson. And we're going to have to do a little time travel to get there. And I think we're about ready to go. It'll happen real fast and we'll be right. Oh, I told you it happened real fast. We're there. We're standing on the sidewalk in Baldwin Park, the unincorporated area of Pasadena, July 4th, 1954. We're going to go visit this 7-year-old boy before he wakes up and hear his story. Right now, it's dark. Light hasn't come out. There's moisture in the air. It's a brand new sidewalk. To the right is a long brick building, St. John the Baptist Catholic School. And then to the immediate right here, is a brand new 2-story white house. Then there's a drive that goes back, the first part of it's asphalt. The next 2/3 of the lot is waist-high weeds. And the rest of the street down as far as you can see and behind us are brand new homes, which is kind of a new thing that's taking place in California, new housing. They have cement up to attached garages next to the houses, something John had never seen before in person. And the fronts of these new homes have brick on the bottom under the front windows, the large front windows. So now we're going to go down to when John wakes up and we're going down, we passed the asphalt. We're on the dirt path now of this long lot. And further back, we can see the peeling white paint off of this old, somewhat leaning, very small white house, revealing the gray wood underneath. That's the owner's house. When he sold the other lots, he got enough money for that new white house. And John's family is in the owner's old house, about 60 years old back there. And we're going in the front door quietly. It has no locks on it or anything like that. And it's an upside down cola wooden crate. That is the first step into the house. We go in quietly and we're catching up with his mother. About 15 steps back, she's coming out. It's dark in the house, no lights on. She goes around the corner and she goes in the room where John's on the top bunk bed. And he's laying down on his side and he's facing out. And we're watching his mom wake him up, trying to. John, Mom, hi, John. Remember you said you wanted to help me make the strawberry rhubarb pie for the July 4th neighborhood party? Yeah. Well, let's get started. I need your help if you still want to do it. Sure, I do. Did you get the strawberries? No, but that's all right. I've started on the dough and I have some water ready to boil. Could you follow me? I jump out of bed in my tidy whities, what was once a white t-shirt, and follow her into the kitchen. And she's picked up a little cutlery knife and she points to the front door. And I walk out there with her and she says, John, we have to get the rhubarb. This is what I need you for. See across the weeds over there, the white fence, the post just behind the rusting truck. There was an old rusting truck right there with a tree growing out of the back of it. You can just see the tops. It's the ones with the green leaves, just right through the brown weeds. Yeah, well, that's the rhubarb. It looks like celery, but it's red kind of at the bottom. Can you go get me some stalks? I need about 5, maybe 6 or 7. Sure. Mom gives me the knife. She said, John, hold on. Some people might think it's strange that you're out hunting rhubarb early in the morning. A lot of people only like it if you get it at the stores. We want to try and get it before anybody is up and notices that we're doing that. And it's okay. It's on our side of the fence, even though it's right by the fence post. But the neighbors, that's where the party is, on their driveway. So we don't want them to feel uncomfortable. We want to do a really nice job with the pie. Okay, Mom. So take the knife and I crouch down the rest of the dirt drive and I get to the front of the old rusting out gray pickup with the tree growing out of the back. I think it had been there like 20 years. I walk around behind it. And then I get down on my hands and knees and I sneak up on the rhubarb. No lights on. It's just light gray out, moisture in the air, like almost like a light fog. I work at cutting off some stalks all around the sides. That's enough. I'm not going to cut the whole thing down. We might want to have a second pie. Now I'm crawling with the stalks in one hand, trying not to smash them in the ground as I crawl back to the truck. Then I feel good standing up and I kind of hustle back to the house. Mom says, great, John, great. I feel really good. And she starts working on cutting up the rhubarb. Well, the rest of the day goes on. She makes the pie. She carries over my baby sister. She's sleeping in a little bed next to Mom and Dad. And Dave, who's in the bottom of the bunk when this whole thing started, he goes with us and we go to the neighborhood party on the driveway at the place next door. everybody's really dressed up. Dave and I talk about all the young kids' shoes. We really didn't have much experience with the kind of shoes they had. Anyway, we spent the day there, and Dave and I got to share a hot dog on a bun. That was really cool. Really liked doing that. And then we walk up, and all these ladies from the neighborhood are talking to my mom, and they're all laughing. Jean, I had never had strawberry rhubarb pie. That was so good. Yes, Jean, that was really good. Mom turned and looked at me. John, could you go get our pie tin? Yeah. Run over and get it, bring it back, and there's crumbs in it. Dave and I hadn't had any of the strawberry rhubarb pie. Mom thanked everybody. We started walking around their driveway, back to the drive, back home. Dad's carrying Marianne. Dave and I are behind Mom and Dad walking down the driveway, and Dad goes, so they really like the strawberry rhubarb pie. Mom just laughed. Dave and I each took some of the crumbs out, thought it was really good. I was thinking, it's time to cut some more rhubarb.
Well, I certainly now have a hankering for strawberry rhubarb pie. My stomach's starting to growl. Thanks, John. Great story. Our next guest is Bowen Lee. She is a great storyteller. I've heard her on Zoom. I think through the through the Storytelling Association of California. Bowen's story is called In Summer, I Learned to Fly. Bowen Liam Lee divides her time between cities, forests, and the ocean around Monterey, California. She was a natural science illustrator and writer before becoming a public school teacher. Now she tells stories. She's been sparking climate change conversations through blending traditional tales. Thank you for that. I mean, I'm so glad people are doing that. Climate change is just like, blending traditional tales with personal narratives and inviting audiences to share their views and ideas about taking climate action. So please welcome.
In summer, I learned to fly. Our parents had been gone for a long time. We could see them over across the meadow and the oak trees, and it looked like they were getting food, but they weren't coming and sharing it with us. So my brothers and sisters, we began to get anxious. We were hungry. We would have knocked each other out if our parents hadn't had the foresight to build the beautiful dome over our home. Otherwise, we would have gone and dropped out because our tails had grown so long, and I got tired of my brother jostling me. So I pushed him with my wings, and then I thought, if my tail has grown long, maybe my wings are long too, long enough to fly. So I stood on the edge of the nest and I looked out towards the oak trees, and I fluttered and I jumped. Well, I didn't make it to the oak trees, but at least I didn't break my neck. And my brothers and sisters got very excited about what I had done, and they took their turn standing on the edge of the nest and fluttering and jumping. And some of them got farther than I did, and some of them didn't get so far. But our parents saw what we were doing, and they came over with juicy green caterpillars in their long yellow bills, and they fed us those caterpillars. And it wasn't that they didn't want to feed us. It was time for us to feed ourselves. So we had to learn to fly. All that summer, I learned to fly. We didn't fly like most birds do, from one point to the other in a straight line, or high in the sky for the wind to blow us. We fly, we are yellow-billed magpies, so we fly like we're floating through the air with our long tails like banners behind us. It's a good way to catch insects. Our parents showed us where all the food could be found. Insects were the best. And when there were grasshoppers, oh, it was so much fun. My brothers and sister and I were having a ball, and our parents came down and said, no, it's good that you enjoy your food, but remember, they are giving up lives for your life. So do not make a sport of this. We didn't make a game of it any longer, but it was still fun to catch grasshoppers. We found all the places where our parents showed us where the food was. And our brothers and sisters from the past season came to help us, and they showed us too. So as a family, we went through the whole summer together looking at food. And in the fall, as it turned to fall, there was so much more food to find: berries, grains and seeds, and acorns. If you found enough acorns, you could gather them up, hide them into a hole in the ground or in the hollow of the tree. And then you didn't have to eat the next day. You didn't have to look for food. We did this a couple of times, so I learned how to do it. When it became winter, my parents went back to their nest. And even though no one was using the nest, my father was still guarding the area. My mother explained, this is because we don't want anyone else to be here because we know where the food is. Okay, and my mother, oh, she laid 7 eggs. We were only 5 when we were in the nest, but there were 7 that hatched. We all had to take turns finding food for all of these babies. Wow, it was a lot of work, but it was really worth it, seeing them standing on the edge of the nest, fluttering and taking off. We helped our parents through the summer, and then towards the end of summer, we went off and we found another flock, a new flock of young birds like us, 1 year and 2 years. And by winter time, I had a mate. His eyes, his yellow eyes shone like stars, and his blue and white and black feathers gleamed. I called him Bright, and he called me Free because of the way I flew. We couldn't build a nest where our parents had, because that was their place. So we looked up and down the riverside, but there was no place for us to build nests. Everyone had been taken, so we had to go farther. And when we finally found a place, we built our nest 3 feet wide, and it took us a couple of tries, but we finally got that dome over the nest, and we were very proud of it. 4 eggs I laid, olive green with speckles. And when they hatched, and those babies with their wide gaping mouths and their naked featherless bodies, all blind, so helpless, oh, my heart just went out to them, especially the last one to hatch. Oh, she was a fighter. She was so feisty. I loved that little baby. We did our best to feed them, but it wasn't like living along the river. We were by houses where people live, and all the plants where they have their houses, there's no insects there. Other magpies in the area told us, no, if you are by houses, then you're not going to find any food in the plants. You have to go to the garbage cans. But we had been riverside born, and we didn't do that. we tried the best that we could to feed our 4 young ones, but it wasn't enough. That they grew so slowly and their feathers came out irregularly. And soon it was time for them to feed themselves because we could barely do it, but they weren't ready. Of course, the first one to get on the edge of the nest and flutter was my last born, my fighter. And as she stood there, I just felt, oh, no, 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 stay, I will feed you. Don't try it. You're not ready. But I had nothing to feed her. She fluttered and then she leaped and she tumbled down. Oh, out of nowhere came this beast, a cat from the houses. And we heard the crack of her neck as it broke, and I saw her lifeless body dangling from those jaws. My baby, my baby. The cat took off and the words of my parents came to me. And I just thought, if only life to help others live and don't make a sport of it. If only the cat knew that. That's the only way that I could get through it. The others didn't do well at all. 2 of them died in the nest because there wasn't enough to feed them. And then the last one jumped, rolled, and for days we fed him under a bush as he was hiding. And then one day we went back and he wasn't there anymore. We never found him. There's a word that humans have for what has happened and why we couldn't feed our young, called climate change. And wherever people have their houses, there are plants that do not provide food. Wright says that often birds who lose their first hatch could have a second clutch, but I don't think I have it in me. We didn't do well at all feeding our first ones. And I don't think that we did well at all feeding ourselves. Bright is not so bright any longer. And when I fly, I am not free. So yellow-billed magpies are found only in Central California. They are nowhere else in the world. And climate change and loss of habitat because of housing development is the surest way for them to become extinct. And they, in fact, they will become extinct. The prediction is in 20, 30 years. So please do your best, whatever you can do to reverse climate change and to plant so that you can provide habitat for wildlife. Thank you.
That was wonderful, wonderfully told, Owen. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
There was a lot there about family success and family struggle and bonding and how we all rely on the climate to have a life, to be able to thrive in our lives. So thank you so much. And yes, it's a real issue these days. That concludes our story. You can go ahead and stop the recording if you'd like, Joyce. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this back on. And we'll let our viewers come back on maybe, if they will.